engagement at Temple Israel. And I also do the senior lunches. So I see some faces that I recognize with Sharamith and United Hebrew and Temple Emmanuel. So I just want to, I'm going to introduce Sam. She's my co-worker and we work together. She serves as the business improvement and communications manager for Temple Israel. She has, excuse me, and she has, apologize. She works on our Facebook, and although she doesn't look it, she looks so young. Sam remembers when Facebook was only available to students, and she was eagerly waiting her student email address so that she could get started and be on Facebook. She's seen a lot of changes and iterations with Facebook over the years, but there is one constant, and that is that Facebook has solidified itself as a way that people communicate in our culture today. So Sam began training others in their use of Facebook and other social media in 2010. She's eager to help and to continue offering others navigations with this method of communication. Sam also, her family has been involved with TI for 5 generations. So they've been around a long time with Temple Israel, and welcome Sam to go ahead with her presentation.
Thank you so much, Susan and Lisa. First and foremost, I want to let you know that in addition to training on Facebook and working at TI, my #1 role is being a mom. And right now, since it's a snow day, I am working from home, presenting from home, and my kiddos are home also. So if you hear anything going on in the background, I want to apologize for distractions, but also let you know that there is another responsible adult, my husband, in the house who's taking care of the kids. The kids just sometimes know that they can get a little more attention if they make a ruckus during a call. You know how it is. So, so I appreciate your patience with that. Like Lisa said, I have seen many iterations of Facebook throughout the year. It is definitely constantly evolving and changing. In fact, I did a little practice run with Susan yesterday. And since I did that practice run, I had to update one of the terms in my presentation because it's now a new term. So that's another thing to keep in mind. What you see today is a great overview, get you started, get more comfortable, and also don't worry if it looks a little different in coming weeks or coming months or even tomorrow, for example. The idea here is to get you comfortable with using it so that you can adapt to those changes rather than knowing exactly where the button is to push for any given thing. Like I said, my #1 role in life is being a mom. So here is a little picture of my giant family. I thought I'd pull a picture from my Facebook since we're talking about Facebook. So this is a picture that my sister gets credit for, but here we all are on a hike, hanging out in nature. And you can see the 3 kids in this picture belong to me. Those are mine. They're 2, 5, and 6. To give you a little overview of what is going to happen with this 4-part class, I've kind of broken it down into 4 sections. We have today, which is introduction. It is just getting started, getting comfortable, total basics, a tour of what is going on. And then we'll dig in a little bit more each week. Next week, we're going to talk about interaction. So friends, groups, looking at people's pictures, whatever, accessing whatever content you're hoping to access. The following week, starting out March, we will talk about publication. If there's anything you want to put out to the world yourself, that we'll let you know how to do it. And then finally, we will focus on protection for our last week. We'll talk about privacy all throughout all of these sessions, but we really want to focus on it that last week so we can fine tune who sees what of what you're posting, who can access it, and some tips for staying safe, because I know that is a big concern and very important. Okay, so first of all, I think I see a hand. Yes, Norman.
We're not able to read your material there. There's a way you can get that on the screen. I don't know what it is, but maybe one of the Merowitz experts can do that for you.
Is it a factor of being too small?
Very small. Yeah, it's worse than an eye chart.
Okay. Up in the top corner of your Zoom, do you see like a little Rubik's Cube looking thing? It's 9 squares.
It should say view.
I see the word view, yes.
Okay, great. You can toggle that to make it so that you just see my screen, which will make it a lot bigger. I believe that view is called speaker.
Okay,
And you
I
can
got
also
now.
make it
Yeah.
full
But
screen. So
now the pictures of other people are in front of it. So I can only read part of it.
All right, so Sam,
can you
can you move, wait, you want to move it over to a little bit? I see what he means, like the names. Or move.
Yeah, if you
so
move it toward you, it'll get out in the open then.
perfect. Is that a better solution? Is it working for you?
Not see it, it didn't move at all. It's still behind the 4 photos.
I can move
Okay,
this right
that's the
here.
idea, but you don't have to cover your face. Move it back halfway.
It doesn't, it only has a couple options from my end. However, your window of other folks can be moved anywhere on your screen. So if you drag, click on the top like white bar where you see the other folks' squares, and you can drag that somewhere else on your screen.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt here.
No, this is good practice for everybody. Other people are probably having the same issues.
Thank you.
Sam, you can go ahead. If anybody else has any difficulties, feel free to call me and I can work with you off time to help you figure out how to be able to view Sam's presentation.
We got somebody else's screen share. There we go. Okay, so again, this is going to be small. None of these words matter. This is just a quick look at what you'll see when you open Facebook. If anybody hasn't already joined Facebook, by the way, shoot Susan a message and we will get you a step-by-step PDF instructions on how you can sign up. And you are not behind at all. You can learn all this now and then put it into practice once you sign up. But we're not going to go through those steps today, just to make sure we can get to all the rest of the goodies that Facebook has. So once you open up Facebook, if you're on a desktop or a laptop, a computer, you will see this screen, and it has lots going on. Kind of in the middle, let's see, I'm terrible at this, where it says senior series big, that part is called the feed. We'll talk about that a lot. It also has other stuff going on this side that you can click to, and over here, lots of ads. But when you open it up, this is what you'll see. If you are doing it from your phone, the same stuff is there, but it's kind of rearranged. So this is what it would essentially look like from a mobile app, and it has the same news feed, which is now called feed. That's the one that just changed yesterday. That's down here. We have a lot going on up here that we're going to talk about. Don't worry, we'll get to it all. And then down here is kind of the menu that was on the left on the computer version. Okay, so today, tour and terms. The first one, the way you will interact with Facebook the most, what you probably think of when you think of being on Facebook is your feed. So your feed is content. I know that's a really vague term, but so much can be on your feed. It could be almost anything. So your feed is content that is hopefully meaningful and important to you. It is personalized to you in that it's curated. So Facebook has an algorithm and they push this content directly to you. Your feed will look different than Lisa's feed, will look different than Susan's feed, will look different than my feed at any given time. That being said, it is not the same as someone sending something directly to you. Someone doesn't have to say, I want Susan to see this specifically for it to show up in her feed. This is more like Facebook has looked all around and gathered information from various places that it thinks will be important and meaningful to you. So here's my quick definition: content that's meaningful and important. And how Facebook decides, it's actually very complicated and people who are professionals can't figure it out. I definitely can't, but basically, Facebook looks at who has published the content, what kind of content it is, and the interactions with the content. So there are three main buckets of who can publish content, and those are friends, groups, and pages. The first one we'll look at is friends. Friends are supposed to be individuals. So on Facebook, it is really actually true that Susan and I are friends. That means one of us has asked the other one specifically, and the second has accepted. So we have a mutual linking relationship on Facebook. There are lots of ways to restrict, and it doesn't necessarily mean that Susan can see everything about me automatically, but generally speaking, we enter in this friendship so that I can see Susan's content and Susan can see mine. It is a two-way street. We can restrict it. We'll talk about that when we get to privacy. But friends are usually people that you're more okay with seeing your stuff. So it would make sense to be friends with someone you actually know in real life, as opposed to other sorts of relationships you can decide to have with folks who you would want to see their content, but they don't need to see yours. Does that make sense? In a very shallow way. Great. Okay. So we have friends, individual to individual relationships, but sometimes we want to get a whole group of people together who share some sort of common interest or common communication need. And for that, we use a group. Groups are, just like it sounds, a group of people who can share content amongst themselves. I'm going to actually go back to this picture. And if you see right here along the side, these are my shortcuts, but many of them happen to be groups. So for example, my kids' classes have groups. They are private. Only the parents of the kids can be in them so that we can share things relevant to their class, like that it was a snow day today, or a picture of the Valentine's project that they just made, or things like that. Groups can also be public. Another example of a group that I'm in that I was just looking at today is a recipe group from people who like to shop at Trader Joe's. That is totally public. Anybody in the world could have that interest. It is not so restricted like my kids' class and, you know, private pictures that we would post in there. So when I'm interacting with the different groups, I'm definitely going to interact differently, whether I'm posting a picture that I'm okay with sharing with the fellow parents of my kids' friends versus a recipe group that could be international. And privacy settings can be just as varied in groups as well. Nonetheless, groups are still a mutual kind of relationship that folks have entered in together, whether they are personally individual friends on Facebook or not. The third bucket of folks who you can access content from are pages, and pages are definitely more like a public face to the world. Pages are typically owned by businesses, organizations, public figures, things like that. And the idea is to broadcast content out to the world. So rather than needing Mirowitz Center's permission for me to see their content, I can just go to their page and choose to follow it all on my own. And I am not necessarily giving them any information back. I'm not necessarily interacting back with them. But by choosing to follow their page, I can get their content to populate my newsfeed so that I can stay up to date with them, or so that I can be entertained by them, or what have you. They're usually businesses, organizations. It could be a musician that you like, or a comedian who shares funny videos or something like that. But the idea of pages is that they are public to push information out to the world. Okay. I don't think I see any hands, but we're going to move on to the what next. So before we do, any question on who, which are friends, groups, and pages?
Marilyn, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay. I was wondering, I joined Ray's Garden Group, and they said it took a while for them to approve me. What kind of approving is that? It took a day. It didn't take very long, but I was just curious as to what they were doing.
That is a great question. So that is very individualized by group. Different groups can have different approval processes. There are, at one end of the spectrum, public groups where you can just say you want to be in it and automatically you're in it. And then there is an entire spectrum of privacy levels. And at the other end, a group can be totally private. Folks can only be admitted to the group with the permission of the administrators of the group, and they can ask questions to make sure that it's a good fit. So, for example, with my group of parents, they didn't have to ask any specific questions, but an administrator had to look at each person who wanted to join the group and make sure that they actually belonged in that group. For another group that I'm in, that is also a private group, but open to a larger expanse of people, so the admins don't necessarily know the exact people who belong in it. They had a list of agreements that I had to say that I agree to be kind and follow the rules of the group and what have you. And so the administrators can review everyone who's asking to join the group and manually add them to the group or or choose not to. That's what the approval process is. Does that make sense? Okay, great. Okay, so I'm gonna hop back up here to this picture. Sorry if I touch a few things on the way. So if we look at our feed, we know that these this information, this content, looking at the senior series part, it comes from our friends, our groups, and the pages that we follow. But what is it? Well, there are lots of what it could be. It could be a post, which in and of itself can mean a lot of different things. It could be an event, or you could see it due to a tag in the post. So a post is pretty much an overarching term. It's just a unit of content. Oh, sorry, I'm clicking ahead in my presentation here. I'm excited to show you these things. There we go. A post is a unit of content. So on this screen, this block that says senior program series, that is a post, and it happens to be an event. But a post could be any little bit of content. It could just be words. I could just make a post that says, I'm giving a presentation right now. Not sure anyone would want to read it, but it could be. A post can also be a picture. So here, Deutsche Early Childhood Center posted a picture of these awesome teachers on pajama day. They had pajama day on Monday, and they made a post with a picture on it. A post can also be a video. So each week, Temple Israel shares a post that is a live video of our Shabbat services. A post could be anything you want it to be and done at any time. And there are a bajillion different ways that you can limit who sees it or target certain people or make lots of decisions about how you want the post to function. And they all still count as a post. So pretty much whatever you see on your feed is going to count as a post. Now, going back to this example that we had up here first, the senior series program, this is also a shameless plug, don't worry. We have a really cool program coming up. So I did intentionally choose this as my example, so if you want to go check it out. So we at Temple Israel have this program coming up, and we wanted people to be able to learn about it on Facebook. And so we made a particular kind of post that is an event. An event has more bells and whistles than just a plain old regular post or even a post with a picture or a video, because by clicking on it, you can actually enter into the event page and get more information about when the event is going to happen. Sometimes, depending on the settings, you can comment on it, have a conversation. I could say, hey, Lisa, this looks really cool. And she would be able to respond back to me in the comments on that actual event. These are usually supposed to be, it's designed to be talking about an event that is actually happening, even if that's virtual. And also sometimes people choose to make them about things that are not necessarily actual happenings, events, but usually they're still tied to a date. So you might see something that is a deadline for something, or our personal care drive. It's not necessarily an actual event, a happening, something that you would go to, but it can let you know that it has a date attached to it. Because the nice thing about Facebook events from a marketer's perspective is that Facebook will kind of remind people that the event is coming up. So Temple Israel just posted this event, but you may see it again a few days later to remind you that this event is coming up. Another what you might see in regards to posts on your feed are tags. So in that picture, I'm gonna go back to the picture of the teachers, I think is a nice example. So in this picture, there are several people that I know. I could decide that it's really important to me that they see this, and I want to put it on the forefront of their feed so they don't miss it. And if I wanted to do that, I would tag them. Tagging someone happens by doing the @ symbol and then typing their name as they appear on Facebook. And it kind of, it notifies the folks who are tagged so that they're less likely to miss whatever it is that you're posting, or so that the rest of the world can know that they are involved in it. So on this tag example that I have, this is from my cousin. My cousin is the girl, her name is Frankie, and she wanted to post a picture in honor of one of her co-workers' birthdays. So she posted that picture and she tagged him in it so that he is more likely to see it, so that when I'm looking at the picture, I know that he's involved with it, he's in the picture, I know who it is, and so that he has the opportunity to kind of claim a piece of it and save it to his profile if he so chooses. Tagging is a great way to get somebody's attention also, even if it's not a picture of them. But like, let's say I was watching Shabbat services and something that really reminded me of Lisa started happening, and I wanted to make sure that she saw it. I could comment with a tag of Lisa to grab her attention, to have a notification sent to her so that she would know that this made me think of her and that I wanted her to see it. It's an attention grabber, a way of pointing out the content to someone. And those are our whats. Of course, don't worry, we will go far more into depth as we continue in our following weeks. You'll learn how to post a video or a picture or tag someone. We will give examples and we will practice, don't worry. But from this high level, big picture view, is there anything still confusing about the what for your feed, the posts, the events, the tags? Yes, Myra.
Yes. One thing, when you say that you wanted to tag someone so they are aware that you're writing about them, you said to use the @ sign. So instead of just writing their name, you have to put the @ and the name?
Yes, fantastic question. I think that I can make an example here. I'll do it on tag. So if, for example, I wanted to tag Susan in a picture, I would type the @ symbol, and Facebook recognizes that that means I'm starting a tag. And so as I start typing her name, it would give me a pop-up list of folks whose names contain whatever I just typed, so that I could click them and complete the tag. And it changes the color of the text, so you can see that it actually has worked. You know, Go ahead.
So you actually say the word tag first?
You don't use the word tag, just this at symbol.
Just the at. I have another question. Sometimes it says help this person celebrate their birthday, and there'll be a post, but sometimes it says right on their timeline. And
Yes.
what is the difference there, and will they see it if it's on their timeline?
That's a great question. So the timeline is on someone's profile, which is one of the next places we're going to navigate in this tour. So don't worry, we will get there. But even something put on someone's timeline is still considered a post, and it can still populate their feed. So if someone makes a post on my timeline, I will most likely access it from my feed because it will be some of the information curated for me to see. What's nice about it being on someone's timeline is that then days, months, weeks later, I can go back, I can think I'm having a bad day and I want to go way back to June of last year on my timeline, and I can see all the posts from my birthday that happened then. A news feed, or the feed, I'm sorry, is ever evolving, dynamic. Once it's gone, it's changed. It's just a constant barrage of information, whereas a timeline is static. It's a place that contains some of that information.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm still not sure about how to post things either for my timeline or to my daughter's timeline, for example. Maybe you could give us an example.
Yes, definitely. And in fact, I will hop right over here. I'm going to take away my video for just a moment so that I can share my screen. All right, you should see my Facebook feed right now. And this is a great time to give some examples. So down here, you see a few posts on my feed. I realize I'm pointing at the screen and I don't think you can probably see where I'm pointing, but we have a Ladue Community Connect post, one from Mercy that has a picture of a family playing, another one here, someone, I don't actually even know how to say that, but they're doing some sort of exercise in nature. These are all posts that are on my feed. This is information from various places, from a group, a page. Fantastic examples here of Facebook curating content from around Facebook and populating my feed with it because they think it'll be important to me.
But how did you do it?
Well, I didn't have to do any of it. It just appeared there because Facebook thought it would be important to me. When I do want to put something there, I use what's up here near the top of my feed. It says, what's on your mind? And from there, I can create a post. This post is me putting it out there into the world so that anyone who I have allowed to see my Facebook content could potentially have it appear on their feed, whether it is a specific person or just all of my friends and followers if the algorithm decides to put it up there on their feed. So here is where I might post a picture of my kiddos playing in the snow because they're so cute that I want anyone who wants to look at them to see it. If I'm posting that picture and I really want Susan to see it because Susan's son, who is a potential babysitter, maybe, I don't know. And does he do that? Maybe Susan's son is there babysitting my kids. And it's a great picture of them all building a snowman together. So if, I'm just totally making this up in case you can't tell. If I wanted to make sure that Susan saw this picture, or if I wanted the rest of the world to know that Susan was in this picture, that's when I would use the tag feature, and I can start typing someone's name and it will pull up these various options for people who I'm friends with, or public figures or pages. Let's see, someone who has an unusual name will pop up quickly. So my sister, her name is Mary Tomachek. She's that first one. If I wanted to make sure she saw something, I would tag her in that post. If I, on the other hand, didn't necessarily want everyone in the world to see something, I could instead go to Mary's, yes, I want to leave Mary's timeline, and I could write something that would live on Mary's timeline. Now, it could also show up in a feed because the feed is populating from curated information gathered from places, including timelines. But if I'm sending it to Mary, if it is for Mary rather than for the world, I could put that right there on her timeline.
Well, how do you access that?
Yours or someone else's?
Mary, you put something on her timeline.
Yes. So here's where I'm starting out at Facebook to search for someone up in this top left corner. I'm pointing again and you can't see my finger. But in the top left corner, there's a blue circle with the Facebook logo. And right beside that, there is a place where it says search Facebook. And there I can type someone's name to try and find them. I'm looking for Mary in this case, so I'm going to click on her, and that takes me to her profile. This is called her profile. And I can post something right there on her profile that she will hopefully see. Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, no problem. Any other questions about the what's, posts, events, tags? While we're on this live view, it's a great time for examples. I don't think I see any other hands up.
I think Lisa has a question.
Lisa, you are muted. There we go. Oh.
I wanted to know if it's possible to show where, where it said the birthday post, how you showed where you could do either write it out there or put it on their feed. Is there?
Yes, so I could hope that someone will see a post two ways, either by this is my general feed page. I can make a post from here and tag someone in it. So I could say happy birthday, yes, Lisa. And I don't know if we are really friends. Well, I had a good example with Mary. I should stick with that. So I could say that, and that is a general post, putting it out there to the universe, but she is tagged in it.
That will go to her feed, so she'll see it because her name's on it. She'll see that.
Well, that's the hope. It's not a guarantee. The feed is super complicated and it depends on a lot of things, but chances are, yes, she will see it if she's tagged in it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And same thing if I were to put it on her timeline on her profile here instead, same thing. She would most likely see it in her feed. And she would definitely see it if she actually navigated to her profile. But I feel like folks don't necessarily do that as much. But yes, she would most likely see that then in her feed.
Okay, Norman has a question and then Mike.
My question is, I have no experience on Facebook. That's why I'm taking this Zoom. And somebody said at the start, if we wanted some general background information about it, we could request that. Who do we request that to?
I'd say let Susan know and she can let me know. The information that I have compiled though is starting getting a Facebook account in general. Not necessarily once you already have one. I think as we go through these classes, we'll suss out more of the details of how to actually make all these overarching terms that we're discussing happen. But I am always happy to help it however I can also. So if you have specific questions, you can reach out to Susan and she will let me know.
Okay, and one other question. Suppose there's a Susan Jones and a Susan Malarkey. How do you distinguish? Do you have to put both their full name or?
Yes, you have to actually click. So let's see if I can think of.
If you want to type, you can send something to me if you want. Go to my page. That's fine.
So I see that Susan on Facebook, her name is Susan Becker Kempinen. So if I wanted to tag her, I'm going to hop back to the general page now so I can do that a little more easily. I would have to type at Susan. I'm going to keep going because it hasn't given me the option of her in my little list here yet. And then eventually, once I type enough, I will see her name and I will click on that. And when it highlights in blue, that's how I know that it has successfully tagged her.
If you want to just click on post, we can go back to my page and see it if you want, and I'll delete it.
All right, so I have, well, as it's posting, eventually. Okay, now I have posted, I have made a post, and in that post, I have tagged Susan. So the whole world potentially could have access to this based on how I set up my settings. So I don't let the whole world see what I do. I've chosen some people that can see it, so that it's limited down to that. Those folks who I say have access to my content could potentially see this, but they've got a lot of content going on. So narrowed down from that, Facebook uses these who, what interaction metrics to decide if this little bit of content that I have now posted is going to be pushed to various people's feeds. So probably this is not super important to my sister Mary, who is young and has a lot of connections and a lot that could go to her feed. And this doesn't seem that important because it's just words and it's not tagged to her and whatever. However, probably if Susan were to log in to Facebook, it would populate right here on her front page feed because I tagged her in it. And so Facebook knows that it's more likely to be important to her. If I then go to Susan's,
Oh, you know what? I have my privacy settings on so that I'll do that right now. I have to go in and accept that it'll show on my page.
It's okay though, because this is another good example. If I know that I want something to more like live in perpetuity for Susan rather than be a fleeting moment, I could go directly by searching to her profile and I could put it right on there. And she probably will still have to accept this. I have those settings set up too, because I don't want just anybody putting a picture on my profile to live in perpetuity. But in theory, I could pop it right there on her profile timeline so that you can see, instead of her being tagged with those blue letters in it, which just means like she's involved in my post, it's up here, I'm pointing again, next to my picture. It says my name and a little arrow and Susan's name, because I'm putting it directly to Susan. Other people could still potentially see it. They can definitely see it if they are visiting her profile, or it could even populate to someone else's feed, depending on what it is. But when I am typing something, posting something right there on Susan's profile, it is more like I'm giving it to her and the rest of the world may happen to see, as opposed to when I'm posting from that front page, in that case, I am posting it to the Facebook world and highlighting Susan's name so that she's more likely to see it. Does that make sense for that? Yes.
Question for you. I like what you're doing. It's helpful, very helpful. But some of us, we really need some written assistance, like a manual or a book to make reference, because we're not young enough to pick this up.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Susan probably knows better about the ins and outs of this, but maybe this could be an area for one-on-one assistance on the Monday tech tutor offerings. So folks could actually have their
That's
own.
good. We're here. I'm just looking for a booklet or a book to read if necessary. If I'm stumped with something, I can probably figure it out if I have a book with your together with this program.
I'll see what slides I can put together that I can email to you with just some basics. A lot of this, Jerry, is just going to be practicing yourself, and we'll keep going over it.
Okay. I know you'll do well.
Yeah.
That example Sam just did where she typed yay on my page, that answers a lot of people's questions about the birthday posts, and your question, Jerry, about getting to your daughter's timeline. You can put a specific post just on your daughter's timeline. You can say happy birthday to the specific friend that you want to say happy birthday to. And that's what it'll look like, just what Sam did right now on my timeline.
Okay.
I have a question.
Mike has a question too. So, Mike, you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I had a question. Samantha, can you go back a screen to the prior your prior screen, because I wanted to ask some. Yeah, that one.
This one. Mm-hmm.
Those
The
pictures
feed.
at the top.
Yes.
I've got one that I've had. That I don't know the person. I was wondering, is there any way that I can get rid of one of those, or how?
So those are stories. We will definitely talk about those more in the future. We are not going to get through all of the things that I had planned for today, but luckily we have 3 more classes. Those are little temporary bits of content that someone shares. And generally speaking, they are from folks that you have become friends with, or a group that you're in, or a page that you have followed. If you don't necessarily have enough content from your curated sources that you have chosen to interact with yourself, sometimes Facebook just put some suggestions there. Like if I go through all my stories, then maybe it decides that I need to see Taylor Swift's or something like that. Taylor Swift is a famous musician and she's a very popular figure. So Facebook just might think that I might like her. When in reality, I haven't ever told Facebook that I wanted to see her information. Unfortunately, there's not really a way to stop those suggestions from happening, but they will change out. It's the stories are for folks who are looking to have a lot of data of content just to access for fun, to see what's going on. And so it's temporary, it only lasts a day, and it cycles frequently. So it's constantly giving more suggestions of what it might think you would like to see.
Thank you.
Marilyn.
Unmute, Marilyn, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. How do you send a picture of yourself to somebody? Let's say you have a picture that you want to send to somebody of something you made or yourself or whatever. And how do you even do that?
So that is a great question, and we will definitely, that is the exact topic of our third session publication. It seems like a really simple question, and in reality, there are so many different ways that you could quote unquote send a picture that we really kind of have to dive into those different opportunities, because we could kind of like we saw with my post to Susan, it was just words, and there were two different ways that I could do it and hope that Susan would see it. And there are a multitude of ways that we can put content out there in a way that we hope someone would see it, with varying levels of who else can see it and how long it'll stay and where it'll end up and what have you. So if you wanted to just basic answer, it's use this post bar with a tag, or search for, get to somebody's profile from the search and put it there like I posted on Susan's timeline. Both of those are viable options, but we really will dig into the many opportunities for putting content out there in session number 3.
Thank you.
I think, all right, I don't think I see any other questions at the moment. So I am going to stop my share, hop back here on my presentation. There is one more thing that I think you hear a lot about, and that is how folks interact with posts. So this is like the super quick, very high level overview, just so you have heard these words before. The third way Facebook decides whether or not it thinks you want to see something is by the interactions with that post. And that sometimes is called engagement. It's measured in many different ways. And most often you will hear about liking, commenting, and sharing. So back on this video that Temple Israel posted, we can see that there's a little spot that says like right there, and right above it there are some little dots with hearts or thumbs up. So if someone has some sort of feeling about a post that's out there, one of the ways they can interact with it is to like it, which just means clicking that button and choosing which feeling you're feeling, like love, laughing, crying, a hug. That's what liking is. If somebody thinks more people in the world need to see this, they can choose share, which is the arrow over on this other side. And that will amplify the content so that the folks who see my content would be more likely to see whatever it is that I'm sharing. And then the other way is to comment. So in our Shabbat videos, we usually have a very active comment section where folks are watching the video in real time, and as they're watching, they might be commenting, like here Leslie Wolf said Shabbat Shalom. Folks will say Shabbat Shalom to each other. They might even tag someone in the comments, or they'll say what a great sermon it was, or how nice it was that the brother of the bar mitzvah lit the candles, or what have you. Comments are a place for conversation about whatever is in that post. And with that, I know we have so many more questions and so much more that we will dig into. But I just want to remind everyone that we're not done here. This is just our overview, looking from a hot air balloon perspective to kind of wrap our brains around the many things that are possible with Facebook, so that next week we can really dive into interaction, how we become friends with people, if we want to join groups, if we want to access pages, how we will help populate our feed with the data, the content that we want to see. The following week, we will talk all about publication, how we put our content out to the world or to my sister who's having a birthday, and everywhere in between. And then finally, we will wrap up that last week with protection, privacy issues, making sure we're making the best decisions about how we're putting our content out there. And I will try and also make sure we leave enough time for any last questions during that last session.
Thank you so much, Sam. I know it's a lot of information, and as I said, keep practicing. And in fact, go to Temple Israel's page and the Merowitz Center's page on Facebook. Like those pages, you can, and then those pages will, what we post will appear in your news feed, and you can practice liking, you can practice commenting, you can practice sharing, all of the things that Sam went over today. So just a few housekeeping items. I will be sending you a reminder email with the link before every class, but it is the same link. So if you want to save this link and put it into your calendar, you can, and you will be able to access every program with the same link. We're going to keep working on this, and I guarantee you're going to become addicted, just like the rest of the world has become addicted to social media. And thank you all for being here today. It was a perfect opportunity to get together on a day that has yucky weather outside and to stay warm and safe in our homes. So I'll see you next time, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.